Hello and welcome to another episode of Mike and Dave's Hi-Fi Riff. I'm Mike Evans.
And I'm David Price.
And David, on this week's episode, what are we going to be talking about?
A really interesting and slightly weird pair of loudspeakers, Mike.
We've done that many times before. Do you remember your Sonys which you bought in, which had amplifiers in and ribbon tweeters and things like that? We've had some particularly strange speakers.
We have, yeah.
I think I'm not sure these are quite in that weirdness category.
No, they're on the weirdometer. They're kind of a 7.
A good solid 7.
A solid 7 rather than a 9 or 10.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, and they are
the ATC SCM7.
There we are, and I've got one here. You've got one there. Look at that! Look at this! Lovely. They're rather lovely, aren't they? They're rather fetching. I don't think we'll be able to hold it up for too long, because they're really heavy.
Yes,
aren't they?
Well, you keep holding yours up. I'll put mine down.
Yes. Okay. Well, thanks for that. That's very kind of you. Oh, let's do that. Look, bi-wireable.
Yeah.
See all those lovely things. All the things I like and you hate. That's really cool.
Yeah,
really cool.
Yeah.
But I don't know how well we can kind of show this, but they're a really odd shape.
Yes.
Because they are much fatter at the front than they're at the back. They're kind of quite heavily tapered. There we are. That's probably better for you, isn't it? Look at that. Yeah, they're quite heavily tapered.
Curved cabinet construction.
Is that what it is?
Yes, it is.
Right. Okay. Curved cabinet construction.
Yeah.
I'm quite taken by them.
Yes.
I'm quite taken by them. But I've sort of had them going for a couple of weeks now.
Yeah.
And they just sort of seem very sort of happy and chirpy and sort of get on with their little lot in a very nice and polite way.
Yes.
I've also put them in with 2 or 3 different systems.
Yeah.
And they've just got on with it.
Yeah.
You know, they're not as fussy as some of the other small speakers. Mm-hmm. Which we've reviewed, and of course, I was just going to say the Eagle Eye will notice they're infinite baffle.
Yep.
They're not ported in any way, and normally that means
they're a nightmare to drive.
Yep. And these don't seem to be. Although, having said that, you were just saying to me that PMC guys recommend
ATC, recommend.
ATC guys recommend
75 watt minimum.
75 watts.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So I'm afraid your name Nate is out of there.
That's the one thing I didn't try.
Well, just as well, because you probably have blown it up.
With my lovely 7 watts output. Yeah. But no, it seems to be sort of okay with sort of all sorts of other things.
Yeah, 10 name Nate ones daisy chained would.
Now that would be my idea of hi-fi heaven. It really would. Yeah. That would be incredible. So what have we tried it with? Tried it with the Sugden, which we reviewed, which probably isn't 75 watts.
It certainly isn't.
Pure Class A, but didn't actually have any problem driving these. Sounded really nice. Yeah. Then we've just tried it now with my exposure amps.
Yep.
Again.
Can you tell us what they are?
Yeah. So 6, 7, Super 8.
Right.
So 6 is the power supply, 7 is the preamp, and Super 8 is the power amplifier. And again, drove them really nicely.
I thought that was a film format of the 1960s.
Super 8. Yeah.
Was that a Caterham car? I can't remember. So.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, that's an exposure joke.
It was, and it was wrong about the Caterham, so it's a Super 7, isn't it?
Got you.
There we are. Right. Even so.
Is that also an exposure preamp?
Sadly not. No, they should do one. They should definitely do one. Just name their amps after weird stuff.
Yes.
So, not too bad to drive for an infinite baffle, but has all the advantages of an infinite baffle speaker.
Yeah.
Really good bass, really tight, not huge amounts, because I tend to think ported speakers add a lot of sort of artificial bass, if you like.
Yeah.
But these don't. These are really cool. Really cool. It doesn't mean they don't go low for tiny little speakers.
Yeah. Well, I think ported speakers, almost all ported speakers thrum a little bit, don't they?
Yes. Yeah. That's fair to say.
It's like if you cut the baffles out of your exhaust, you get that sort of extra.
Exactly.
Exactly. But in theory, I mean, I have heard ported speakers that can sound really tight and clean and smooth in the bass. Generally the general tendency is that the port can kind of announce its presence, as it were, can't it?
Especially on small boxes.
Yeah. Because so many small boxes, this kind of size end up with a kind of slight lift at about 100 hertz to make them sound a little bit weightier and a little bit bassier. And often that's, in the case of Mission, I remember speaking many years ago to Henry Asimer. This is back in the 90s when he designed the Mission, I think it was a 760i speaker, and he basically said, yes, hands up, we engineer in a little bass bump to make it sound more impressive in the showroom.
Interesting, okay.
So, but with the ATC, it's, as you say, sealed box, infinite baffle, and the bass, and that makes it unusual, by the way, for a speaker of this price, because it costs £1,000, I think it's £1,095 or something like that at the moment. But most speakers of that price are reflex ported. So this is quite rare to find one that isn't at this price.
Yes.
And it has a tight and propulsive bass, doesn't it?
It really does. It's also got a bit of an ATC signature, hasn't it?
Yeah.
It
certainly does.
We've had some other ATC speakers in the past which I never wanted to let go of because I love them so much.
But talked about them endlessly.
Yes, yes. When I'm lamenting the loss now, even so.
Yes, but that'd be the ATC SCM40s.
SCM40s, which I thought were amazing.
Yeah.
These are obviously a very different beast.
Yeah.
Because the SCM40s are massive floor standards.
Yeah.
But definitely of the same mould, without a doubt. They've got that lovely sort of kind of really speedy sound to them, really fun.
Yeah.
And everything I like.
They're like a mini-me
SCM40,
aren't they?
They really are.
The SCM40 was Dr. Evil. This would be the mini-me.
They really would. But they're still I mean, if you don't like the sort of very sort of forward, almost slightly aggressive sound, they're probably not for you. If you want something that's really sort of laid back and chilled, they're not like that. But
I wouldn't say they're aggressive, but I know exactly what you mean. They're up front, aren't they?
Very much so.
And they're like, I'm here, and we're going to have fun.
Exactly.
Rather than, ooh, I'm a bit frightened of the music,
No, 100%. 100%. I remember listening to a pair of Celestion DL8s,
yes,
which were sort of really sort of big, not my favourite sort of speaker. Sort of, they were exactly as you just described it. A bit sort of, I'm going to stay back a bit here and be a bit sort of saggy and a bit dismal. Yeah. And these are totally the opposite. Yeah. These are sort of straight at it.
Little Yorkshire Terriers.
They are. They're Yorkshire Terrier speakers. Yeah. They're biting at your ankles.
Yes.
Play me something louder. Play me something. Play me something. Which has got some heavy metal in it or something. And they love all of that.
Norwegian death metal, please.
Absolutely.
I've had enough of Sade.
Absolutely. No, quite.
Yeah.
Jay, our pal.
Yes.
What sort of music does he play in his band?
Well, he's got several bands. This is Jay Garrett from StereoNET, UK editor. But it's all kind of, as far as I can see, variations on the theme of loud.
See, I think these would be perfect speakers for his type of music.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Jay. If that's
no, that was meant to be a compliment. It really was. It was meant to be a compliment. I'm sure Jay would take it as a compliment. I think they would love that. They would be his best mate. Because they just want to play something that's just ride at it.
Like Cyndi Lauper, they just want to have fun, don't they?
They do.
So, but I mean, to me, it's interesting because they are, as Mike said, they're obviously they're very compact. I think it's they're about 300 millimeters or 30 centimeters ish by 200 whatever going back and one. So they're quite compact, as you can see. But they have, I think, a 7-litre internal volume. That's where the 7 comes from.
Right, okay.
So obviously your SCM40s were 40.
Very good.
They're not designed to give low bass. I think ATC, I'm just looking at the specs here, down here somewhere. I think they go down, sort of 40 hertz, that kind of thing, at the tops. Maybe 50, but you don't notice the lack of bass extension because the bass itself is superb. It's really tight. It's sort of very crisp, and it's very tuneful as well.
It really is. Yeah, absolutely.
And it goes up really seamlessly into the mid band, and I think the mid band is, just as you were saying, typical ATC. It's quite detailed and crisp, isn't it?
really is.
Yeah, but it's slightly thin, you could say.
Yes, yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I would definitely agree with that. That if it had a fault, that's it. Yeah. But that's also its charm in its way, in a strange way. These have been around for a little while, haven't they? They're not sort of brand new on the market.
Yes,
they've been around for a little bit.
Decades.
You reviewed these
a good while back,
many moons ago.
Yeah, a good while back. I think for Hi-Fi Choice. And I think I did a group test of them with, similar kind of sub-£1,000 speakers. And these were the wild card, and they ended up winning.
Isn't that often the way?
Yeah.
No, I can understand why, because they're very endearing. They've cost me money, by the way.
Have they?
Have I told you this?
No.
Yeah. So what I did foolishly. This is a mic error.
Did you had a card game with them and they beat you?
I put them in a little system in my daughter's bedroom.
Oh.
And as a result of that, I've had to buy her tickets to see The Prodigy.
Right.
And because that's the kind of music they play really, really well. And actually, if you listen to The Prodigy through these, it sounds fantastic.
Right.
So that's a really stupid thing to do, wasn't it?
So you were playing The Prodigy Experience or something like that, were you?
She was. Yeah, she's
like, Dad, this is a great band.
Exactly.
Can I see them?
Yes. And me saying, actually, it's because of the
say they're rubbish. The band's rubbish. The speakers are making
the ATCs are making so much better than they really. That didn't work.
No.
They didn't cut any mustard at all.
I've had
to buy tickets for The Prodigy.
Right,
now.
that's about half the price of the speakers.
Exactly. Yes, at Brixton. So not only have I got to do that, we're going to Brixton to watch The Prodigy. So there we go. Very cool.
Excellent.
But that kind of music, that kind of genre, they're terrific. Yeah. Really brilliant. And also kind of guitar-y bands. So something like Sam Fender.
Yes.
Anything which has got a bit of get up and go in it.
Yes.
Then they really, really adore.
I think sorry.
No, I was going to say when we were listening, we probably didn't really do them justice with some of our 80s choices. No. To be fair, we didn't listen to anything like that at all. But
I think you're spot on though. They are great with techno and kind of fast modern electronic music.
Yes.
And also they're really good with rock. Yes. Generally.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I've just discovered this new rock band. So, ever heard of these, Mike? Is it Drush?
Yes,
Dush?
That's right.
Bush?
Yes.
Bush?
Thrush.
Rush. Okay. Sorry, I need my glasses. Okay, moving pictures.
That's quite an album.
Is that a good album?
That is quite an album.
Okay.
I was listening to that earlier with them. It sounds fantastic.
Really?
It sounded really, really good.
Today you're listening to Rush.
I was listening to it. So I had a quite a weird setup actually for this.
Right.
So I had a Sony CD player which you sold me.
Right.
As the transport.
Thank God it's still working.
It's still working beautifully. Thank you very much. Plugged into my Name Unity Atom headphone edition, which has got its own DAC, which is actually a very good DAC.
Yeah.
And then out of that into my Super 8 Cine recorder.
Right.
My Super 8 exposure amp.
Right.
And these. It sounded amazing.
Yeah, I bet.
It sounded really good. So I was playing YYZ.
Yeah.
YYZ for any American followers.
Yeah.
And it was...
not anyone from Canada.
Knock your teeth out. Brilliant. Yeah. It was just fantastic. Yeah. There's a really incredible Alex Lifeson guitar solo about halfway through.
Yeah.
And it was just, whoa, this is amazing.
Yeah.
This is so good. Where's all that noise coming from? And it's these tiny little chaps here, doing it. And in fact, probably on our camera here, you don't really get an idea of how diminutive they are.
No.
When I put them on my Sara stands, they sort of disappear, because they're so tiny compared to the Saras. And in fact, we were also listening to the Dali's Rubicors, and the Dali's are sort of twice the size of these, aren't they? It's interesting. The Salvadors.
Yes.
The Salvadors.
So I think they're 84 dB sensitivity. So you've got you're a little bit better maybe than LS35A.
Yeah.
But not much. It's still very much in kind of old school sort of low sensitivity kind of terms. But they're 8 ohm nominal impedance, so they're reasonably benign load for amps.
Yeah.
So basically, if you've got a nice punchy, reasonably powerful, I'd say 50 watt plus, even 30 watt plus, not 7. So, like your name.
I'm just ignoring you. Ignoring you now.
They really shift. They sound great. they're fast and propulsive. They're really dynamic, but they need a bit of a kick in the whatsits to get going.
They do, but they're right up my street. I remember the SCM40s and just how much I really loved those. And these are just sort of baby versions of that. They're right up my alley. They fit in with the music I like. And I just think that they're terrific speakers.
And I love the fact they've been around for such a long time as well. So, I don't know the exact year they came out. I think it's around 2005 or 2006 or something. But they've still got. I mean, this type of cabinet was incredibly trendy with Wharfdale Diamonds. In the sort of around about 2009.
Sure.
They had these sort of tapered cabinets, and the whole speaker industry was making cabinets like this and telling us that they reduced internal reflections, and therefore only these could sound good. And of course, everyone else has gone back now to normal boxes, but.
ATC they don't sort of bring out new speakers every 6 months, do they?
No.
They take their time, they find something that works, and then they stick with it.
They're kind of like Morgan, aren't they?
They are. You can't knock it, can you? If that's your thing, then that's brilliant, isn't it?
And not having the latest, kind of whatever type of fancy dome tweeter, the latest this or that kind of material.
Yes.
Doesn't matter. They're ATC drive units. They got them right in the first place.
Absolutely. And also they do an active range as well, don't they? So the SCM40s, for example, you can get an active. I'd really like to hear those. I'm a big fan of active speakers because it just alleviates so many problems, doesn't it? With speaker cables and all of these things. It just plug and play, like the Acoustic Energy E1s, which we reviewed. Again, really cool active speaker. But fantastic. Really, really enjoyed these. I'm just as reluctant to give them back as I was the 40s, but sadly we've got to. But there we go.
Yes.
We appreciated listening to them.
Well, let's see how long you can keep hold of them, because the 40s had to be prized from your cold, dead hands, didn't they, Mike?
They did.
You had them for many, many months, didn't you?
And also the 40s were like a two-man lift, and they came in these massive flight cases, so this huge truck had to come and pick them up.
Okay.
These are a little bit more portable, aren't they? Although they still weigh a lot. They still weigh a ton. They're much
heavier than they look.
They really are, absolutely. I've got a dead leg here.
Yeah. And of course, made in the UK, really well made. Really, the cabinets are really quiet, aren't they? I mean,
they are. Yes,
incredibly
that's really
quiet
true.
Compared to to so many things at this price.
Really nice drive units.
The sort of classical ATC slightly sticky drivers.
Yes. Yeah.
Exactly.
So very nice.
Absolutely.
Should we do a riffometer on them?
Yeah. So, how can I put this? So, the ATC sound, I don't think is everyone's cup of tea. It has a certain sort of focus, and I think it's great with rock and sort of live music, loud, punchy live music type program material. Also brilliant for techno and electronic stuff as well. I think personally, I think it is very good for classical as well in some ways. But there are some, certainly from the rhythmic side of things, it's great on classical, but. The tonality of ATC speakers, some people think it's a little bit on the thin side, it's a little bit dry, maybe. That's just a personal preference.
Sure.
So I don't think you could say that they're the best speakers in the world for everything ever. You certainly couldn't say that, but they are focused on dynamics and rhythm, I think. And they do that brilliantly, don't they? They do it really well.
They do.
Even at the price of £1,000 roughly, they're special. I think.
Really are.
And that's why for me, going back a few years when I did a group test, I ended up I'd never heard them before. Didn't have much in the way of expectations, and I ended up just falling in love with them.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to give them a 9. So I'm not going any higher because tonally, maybe you could say they're not for everyone. I never say they're not overly harsh or shrill, but they're just not quite as sort of
sweet
and natural and mellow as some speakers.
No, sure. So. And I think you're quite right. And I think you'll either think they're good, or you'll absolutely love them.
Yeah.
And you'll think they're good because they by any yardstick they're great speakers.
Yeah.
But there's a certain genre of people out there who will just think these are absolutely on the money.
Absolutely.
And I'm one of them. I think it's great. So I'm definitely going to give them a 9 as well. I can't see any reason to give them any less than that.
Yes. Rush fans.
Rush fans of the world unite. Unite and take over.
Yeah.
Quite. And on that note.
On that bombshell.
Excellent. Thank you for watching this episode of Mike and Dave's Hi-Fi Riff, and we'll look forward very much to seeing you at the next one. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.